Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen. We are here on the Three Man Weave College Basketball Podcast, the 300th episode. Somehow, Jim, Matt, and Kai have made it all the way here to 300 episodes. I promise this won't be a completely masturbatory episode, maybe only a little bit, just a teeny tiny. I'm Jim Root. I'm your host this week, joined, of course, by Kai McEwen, Matt Cox. For the first time in ages, all three of us are in Chicago. That is surprising. We're at our homes. Matthew, how does it feel to be back in the Midwest as a big-time world traveler?
I've seen the sun one more time here than I did in my 3 weeks out in LA. I don't know what that effort was. I'm kind of mad at the entire West region of the country, to kind of lay out that red carpet, which is basically a shriveled up, wrinkled red carpet with stuff all over it. Yeah, bad weather, still great time, great experience. Enjoyed my time out there, but I'm a Midwest man through and through. Good to be back in home base at the headquarters with my newly adorned decor in the background. Go Owls.
Looks great. Matt has an FAU pennant behind him for those listening and not checking out the live show on YouTube right now. Yeah, episode 300, guys. Wow. This kind of snuck up on us. I think our podcast, Jim and I were talking, has been going since 2016. A year after we actually started our website. So 7 years of podcasting, 300 episodes. As Matt Marquardt in the chat pointed out, we used to have a duck timer, which would cut off our segments of teams we would talk about on our original shows. And it was a terrible idea and it was very annoying. I'm glad those episodes are super hard to find because I would not like to listen to them.
Hi, what's the biggest
I'm trying to pull up the audio
you've
of
made
that duck
since
timer.
2016?
I can't get it.
The biggest change I made since 2016, Jim.
Yes. What's the biggest difference in your life?
I quit my corporate job. I think that's a constant for all three of us. I bought a place in Chicago. I don't rent anymore. I have been married since then. That hasn't really changed. Yeah, I'm pretty status quo, Jim, besides the whole job thing.
Yeah, I know Matt's changes. He is engaged. I lived in Vegas and moved back in the time that we have had a podcast. Wow. So that's fun. But guys, we got to talk Final Four. We're not going to talk about us. We're going to talk about Final Four. There's only three of us. There are four teams remaining. That would be FAU, San Diego State, Miami, and UConn. We're going to drill into that. We're going to talk a lot about the coaching carousel. Again, not totally in depth. We will have a coaching higher grades episode coming later in the off season. And we've also got to talk a little bit about what we saw in the tournament before this Final Four, some of these surprises. I will also apologize if anyone can hear the incessant drilling outside of my building. I hope that is not coming through on the microphone. If it is, big apologies because it's really annoying me.
But your building has been hammering renovations, Jim. Absolutely hammering renovations. Like the last year, it seems like it's been tough. Yeah,
it's not
feel bad for it.
It's really brutal. But hey,
for the building, I guess. But yeah.
We are going to get into the intro real quick here. Shout out to Mr. J. Pitty, Joe Paskov, the orchestrator of our intro. One of the best intros in the game, the best one in the college hoops game. Other than during March Madness, CBS guys use the college basketball theme song, and it's tough to beat that.
Jim, what was our intro on episode 1 of this podcast?
They're playing basket.
Yes, it was. We did not have licenses to that, but we used it.
It was less than 30 seconds, which I think is part of a little, way to skirt that.
Basketball is my favorite sport. I like the with it. Sorry.
Episode 300 here. We're going to do a little Roots Roundup. Like I said, we've saw that of the past and then the Final Four preview. Shout out to Jay Pitty. Subscribe to the pod on iTunes, SoundCloud, Spotify, Amazon, Auto Radio, wherever it is that you get your pods. And leave reviews. We actually have a couple here, Kai. One of them syncs up very nicely with it being episode 300. I'm going to kick it to you.
First one from Falcons 190, best source of college basketball knowledge, great information, while also being entertaining, best intro outro music in the podcast game. Yes, absolutely. A question. If the tournament was all best of 3 series instead of 1 game matchups, how different would the current teams be in the field? Well, my take is extremely different. You would see top 10 teams in the Final Four, maybe even top 5, because upsets, Jim, would become extremely rare.
Yeah, it'd be really tough to win 2 out of 3 against a much better team. A lot of these like double-digit dogs that you see win, like we know that Fairleigh Dickinson wouldn't be in the round of 32 had that happened. I also think it would just change the general perception of the tournament. There's just less magic to it if it's not one and done. If if Purdue loses but can come back and smash in 2 games after that, people are less intrigued by it. the bracket appeal wouldn't be as exciting, like walking around with your bracket. Like I picked Purdue in 2 out of 3 over FD. Like it just wouldn't have that same ring to it. Matt, my question to you, would you rather have this happen, best of 3, or the field expands to 128?
Oh no.
Best of 3 for sure. Right.
I'd rather expand.
I'd rather expand too.
You losers. Okay. No.
Best of 3.
I mean, that's more of a true result, is it not? It's not like a 7-game series. Like you have some upsets there.
True. That part of the joy is not being the true result.
Yeah. I like the early upsets. Truer. The early upsets are good. Final Four, I agree with you, man. I want my Final Four to be top 10 teams. I want it to be a representation of our sport at the end of the year. But best of 3 would be kind of vanilla, right? Also, it would take forever, Jim.
Yes, that would be. It wouldn't be this like frenetic insanity of 4 days where you go from 64 to 30, or 64 to 16 really quick. That would be like, all right, everybody plays back to back to back. The quality is really bad in the last day, and we only went from 64 to 32. It would be a pain. I like the theoretical idea, though. I think it is a fun little thought exercise. So shout out to Mr. Falcons 190.
Yeah, Jim. Also, just a point of hey, the tournament's pretty random. Second review, C Riggs 94. Jim Kai, Matty Naples, my guys. No reviews from Chris Riggins here in a while, but don't worry, I've been tuned in. I've been in enemy territory, the state of Kansas. He got a new job filled with KU fans. Absolutely disgusting as an individual born and raised in St. Louis. Anyways, he's been listening pretty much since we got started, which is fantastic. He wanted to let us know how much he loves us. Wow, that's fantastic. Genuine College Hoops podcast. Love it. Appreciate the compliments. Then he says, P.S. I'm not sure how much longer he'll last with the heathens of Kansas basketball. If you're looking for an intern with a background in finance and over 1,000 hours of college hoops watched, I'm your man. Keep it up, boys. Love you. Thank you, Chris. Fantastic review, Jim.
If he's in finance, I'm going to see a detailed log of all hours spent watching college basketball, just like you assign your hours to clients and all that garbage. God, Matt, corporate world. Ugh.
Matt liked it.
Don't miss it. No, Kai thinks I did because I still have some of my lingo from the corporate world, Jim, but I think it actually makes me better in the post-corporate life. But do I actually miss my time? Absolutely not. I was one of the worst
didn't you like not submit your timesheet one time? You almost got fired.
I got docked on half of a you get like a 1 through 5 annual review, where I'm sure everyone has some sort of annual review process. I got dropped from a 2, which is above average, exceeding expectations. Thank you. Wow. To an average, meeting expectations, because I had such poor time compliance, under 20% for the year. So basically, 1 of every 5 days I was putting. But I go in every Friday and just go 8, and then we'd all move forward and there'd be no issue. But apparently they were not happy with that. So yeah, lessons learned, I guess. If I ever go back to that dark side, which I won't.
Jim, I met expectations all 8 years I was there. I
certainly never exceeded expectations.
I used to get mad at that on a young staff because I thought it was BS, but then I learned to accept it and I worked less hard and I just said, all right, whatever.
Yeah. That was like when I get mad, I didn't get an A. Like it doesn't matter in the grand scheme. It doesn't matter at all. So I guess maybe 3 and 2, the difference between above expectations and average is
don't get below.
There's a financial,
right.
There's a financial.
Yeah. Cause that's just embarrassing. Cause that's embarrassing if you actually get below. It's like, who's the loser?
All right, let's get into the podcast, guys. We belabored this intro a little too much here. We're back in Chicago. We're headed to Houston. Kai and I are headed there tomorrow morning, Thursday morning. Matt will be joining us on Friday. Got a lot to discuss. Kai, let's get into Roots Roundup. But before we do, shout out to our guys at Home Field.
Home Field Apparel, man, they are our sponsor. They've been our sponsor for a couple of years now. They're just great guys, great girls and guys over there at that company because they make the best shirts on planet Earth. It's all college sports focused, and colleges, I guess. It's not all sports. They make premium apparel for schools of all sizes. We're talking power schools, D3 schools. You got Colorado State of Mines over there. Excuse me, Colorado School of Mines. I've seen the logos. It's pretty sweet. They got a donkey on them. They dig through years of archives to really understand your school and to put together designs on shirts and hoodies that actually mean something to your school, stuff you'll be proud to wear. They have a 3-piece FAU collection they just released, which looks great as usual. They have a Harley Dickinson collection up there, which looks great. And I'm sure they have stuff up their sleeve for the national champion this season. I know they've done some really good stuff in the past with champions Very excited to get a look at those shirts. I own many, many Home Field shirts. I encourage you guys to as well. Go to their website, homefieldapparel.com today to shop your school. Remember, if they don't have their school, their Twitter is homefieldapparel. Tweet at them, say, get my school. Get 15% off your purchase with our promo code 3MW at checkout. That's Home Field. Wear one for the team.
Attaboy. Shout out to FAU. All right, key headlines, guys. Kai, you want to lead with this, so I'm going to let you do so, being the animal lover that you are.
Jonathan the Husky, that's UConn's live mascot, cannot go to the Final Four. And this is tragic. The reason, he's too big to fly on a commercial flight. Yep, he requires a chartered flight with 2 seats for him and 2 seats for his handlers. Come on, UConn boosters, make this right. Get Jonathan the Husky down to the Final Four. Not only do I want to meet him, but he's a good boy, and he deserves to be pet by millions of people. Matthew, you love dogs now.
Yeah, big dog guy, Kai. Big real dog guy. But is the mascot coming? So the mascot's coming, right? Like the guy,
the guy that wears
suit, which is
but not the actual.
What's his
husky
name, by the way? Right, the husky we like, but the relative to other like Uga and Butler, the husky doesn't get as much TV run. It's very much BS. The human mascot, but generally, it's been a long-standing kind of disrespect towards the authentic husky in that. So I don't know, tough deal. I mean, what else there's to say? It's a big dog, Kai.
I'm going to say the joke I almost would have said, but I don't want to get canceled. I almost said, Kai, the Hurricanes can't bring their live mascot either, but I didn't say that. I didn't make that joke.
Yes.
So no one can get mad at me. That was not a joke that was made on this podcast. All right, let's keep going. It is a shame that we will not have a live dog that we can give some nice head pats at the Final Four. Coaching news, though. Texas has officially hired Rodney Terry following his run to the Elite Eight with the Longhorns. A little bit surprising. I guess the idea was they didn't want to make the formal offer while he was still going. We don't know if this was an official make the Sweet 16 and you get it, or make the Elite Eight and you get it. Not sure what was going on there with Chris Del Conte, the athletic director. But alas, Rodney Terry is in charge. 5-year deal. Kai, do you think he makes it all 5 years?
I don't. I'm not trying to be a hater here. No offense to Mr. Terry or the Texas faithful, but I really don't. Jim, you have good stats on his resume, which I think are fun to read here, but I'll let you do that. My question for Matt, I'm going to pose this to him. Who lasts longer, Rodney Terry at Texas or Hubert Davis at UNC? Because I think Davis is out on the outs in the next couple of years if he doesn't get that program together.
Ooh, good question.
Thoughts?
I think Terry lasts longer.
Wow. Okay.
Interesting.
Yeah, I do. And that's even with UNC probably having a longer leash, given that they've had longer tenured coaches historically. I think they're probably more inclined to give their guy that they chose maybe a longer leash. That said, I'm with you. I'm selling Davis. And I do think Terry, even though it's a tough spot for the university, like, what are you going to not give him the job after you took your team to an Elite Eight? It's sort of, you had to do something. But obviously, you wouldn't have landed on Terry if this were a normal searching hire process. So you feel bad for the AD. I mean, I don't feel that bad because they have plenty of money and they're Texas, but it's kind of a lose-lose scenario here, in my opinion. Like, to really go out and choose the guy you truly want, he was never going to rub the players the right way, or Terry or the fan base, given what Terry's done there to kind of hold the fort down this year. So just a tough spot.
Yeah, universally lauded as a good guy. It seems like everybody likes him. But
yes,
in 10 years of being a head coach, he was 163 and 156, barely above 500. That's in the Mountain West and Conference USA. He wasn't clashing with Hall of Fame Titans. He was 81 and 91 in league play combined at Fresno State and UTEP. And he made one NCAA tournament in 10 years. Like, imagine Texas hiring that resume without this like 20 game sample of him taking over the most veteran team in the entire country, basically. It would be absurd. It'd be preposterous. People would be at the gates of Austin's board of trustees or whatever. And instead, he gets there. I don't think it lasts either. Kai from the chat, who lasts longer, Rodney Terry or Kim English?
Good segue, because we're going to talk Kim right now. I'll say Kimmy, but I don't know. Don't feel strongly about it, Jim.
Yeah, I think Kim is given a long leash because of the risk that he represents. It is a very unproven hire, Kim English to Providence from George Mason. He's 34-29 in 2 years at George Mason. He's 18-16 in league play. His KenPom ranking this year was worse than the year that got Dave Paulson fired. That's rather notable. Also, two other coaches, like he won 20 games. I think that's a big case that George Mason fans are making. It was a bad A10 this year, objectively. He had a very talented team. And Dave Paulson won 20 games his second year at George Mason. Paul Hewitt won 20 games his second year at George Mason. This isn't some like, oh, he's figured it out. He's solved George Mason and has elevated that program. Like not even close. This is a major gamble based on the testimony of Rick Barnes and the media and et cetera. Matt, I am bearish here, especially given the quality of coaches the rest of the Big East. Now they've got Ed Cooley and Rick Pitino and other guys taking over there. I just think this is going to be really, really tough at a place that Cooley kind of elevated out of the depths of the league.
I think Cooley elevated it late, especially, right? Like Providence as a program historically is, and we talk about the Cooley zone, Ed Cooley before the last 2-3 years was kind of in that, 40 fringe top 40 to fringe top 60, always like kind of bubblicious, but typically on the wrong side, occasionally on the right side. That's where I think English ends up with this if he stays for 5 years. Like, I think if you look at his mean performance, if he gets a full 5 years, will be right around the Ed Cooley zone before Ed Cooley took that zone to a higher level the last 2-3 years. I'm not as bearish overall in English. I just think that relative to the program baseline of expectations, I think English is good enough to come in and hold down the fort. Not going to set the world on fire. I don't think he's going to crash and burn, although there's a high risk that he does that, then crushes it. I will admit, I will agree with you there.
Yeah, who's
I think he's actually more stable
ahead of. That's
right. In that conference against those coaches, against those programs, I agree. I think Providence has kind of locked themselves into the middle to bottom part of the Big East totem pole for the next 5 years.
Yeah. And that's it. And Jim mentioned the program thing, George Mason. Larranaga took him to the Final Four. This program did not reach new heights under Kim English, but he had arguably the best starting five in the A10. You could argue maybe other schools, but
SLU and Dayton.
It was up there. And he finished fifth in the worst A10 in recent memory. But Jim, he's making the rounds on the viral stage with the playing Jaden Pierre in one-on-one to convince him to stay out of the portal.
He basketballed him, Kai. He basketballed him.
He has the media eating out of his hands. Just prove it to me on the court, man. That's all I got to say.
Yeah, he's super media savvy. I know he's good at pretty much everything involving coaching except coaching. He's awesome with the media. He's awesome in press conferences. He's a great rah-rah guy with the fan base. He gets involved. He's phenomenal on Twitter, so he's relatable. I need proof he's a good coach.
Yeah.
Considering his position is head coach, that's what we need to see. That's what we're waiting to see. Let's move through some of these other hires a little more quickly. Notre Dame hired Micah Shrewsbury. We're not going to bore you with thoughts here because we all think home run, correct?
Thumbs up. Oh, yeah.
Grand slam. The Shrewsbury? Yes.
Yeah. Matt's boy, Shrewsbury. He's an Indiana guy, so this just made a ton of sense for him to go there. Penn State replaced him with Mike Rhodes. It is not officially official, I don't believe.
I think it is now.
Oh, that one's official. The one that's not official, is VCU replacing Rhodes.
Yep.
But Mike Rhodes coming from VCU. Kai, this one's a little more interesting stylistically in the Big Ten. Where do you land?
Solid, I guess, but kind of weird also. Yeah, his style goes against what we think of Big Ten teams. So it'll be interesting to see what he does. Penn State, not usually in contention in the Big Ten. I'm not sure they really get in contention with Rhodes. Shrewsbury's better, so it's kind of a downgrade, but it's hard to get an upgrade over Shrewsbury, frankly.
Yeah, Matt, does it matter that he just won the A10 with Brandon Johns and Zeb Jackson, two Big Ten transfers in his rotation?
bring those guys with a little familiarity of the league. I think that would help, although those guys weren't exactly world beaters for VCU this year.
Johns is done 5 years.
Okay. Penn State's, Chambers, say what you want about him. Guy had an amazing run to close out that stretch. And then you bring in Shrewsbury, who is fantastic. I think they've basically maxed out what you can get out of this program. And that's, a top 50, top 40 fringe team. Can Rhodes get there? Maybe, but the ceiling's inherently capped because of the program. And I think the way Rhodes coaches, his ceiling's also inherently. However, the floor will be really high. I think they're going to be competitive year in, year out. How many tournaments that results in, I don't know, but they'll be in the picture, in the mix with Rhodes.
I could see them having some finished 13th years.
Yes.
As Graham is saying in the chat,
Okay.
like the roster is pretty barren right now. They were really reliant on grad
we'll see what the
transfers.
roster looks like.
It could be dicey. We'll see what he's able to bring in there. As I mentioned, VCU has now backfilled that position very quickly with Ryan Odom coming from Utah State. Kai, I remember we were surprised when he went from UMBC all the way over to Utah State. Now he's back across the country to the East Coast. Not what you think of in terms of staying in the Havoc family with Shaka and Wade and Rhodes. This is a different hire there, but you know what? He's a really good coach, and I think this is a nice fallback option for the Rams.
Yeah, pretty much home run level, I think. We know he's a fantastic coach. Scott called it the Soak State, Utah, which is hilarious, but we won't go into details on that one. He knows the area. He's more of an East Coast guy. He is an East Coast guy. He's not a Utah guy. So it's a great hire. It's a smart hire. VCU just doesn't miss on hires, it seems.
Yep. I'd like to go into breaking news real quick.
I like breaking news. Wow. On a live podcast. Go, Jim.
Charlton Young has withdrawn his name from consideration at Temple. He will be staying. Apparently, he was offered the job. That was reported about a half hour before we started recording this. He will be staying at Mizzou. It says due to the uncertainty with and then my notification cuts off. So unfortunately, I don't know the rest of it, but he will not be there. Uncertainty with the leadership of the school. Temple's president resigned yesterday. That's
fair enough.
Yep.
Good call. All
right, Matt, I'm going to go to you for this next one because I'm excited about it. I think it's going to turn into an absolute grand slam of a hire. Texas Tech looking like they're going to be Grant McCaslin guys, just waiting for the end of the North Texas run in the NIT. Where do you land on McCaslin to Texas Tech? I mean, this is a fan base that's grown to appreciate awesome defense. Doesn't this make a lot of sense?
Yeah, total sense, right? You're basically just getting a better Mark Adams, right? A better person, and then better just X and O coach, schematic guy and a proven track record, knows the area. Texas through and through is going to get, pick off all of those undervalued JUCO guys that people have trouble kind of recruiting, kind of similar to the Jans method. But I think he'll also, be in the transfer portal pretty heavily. We've seen him do that to some degree. Concerning if you're a Tech fan, every time North Texas wins is another 24, 48 hours. You are not recruiting adamantly in the portal. That would bother me. I'd be rooting against North Texas pretty heavily here in the NIT.
Well, in the
just given how much
it's the same length now, right?
Like, well, yeah, I know, but just like, I mean,
you
seen
Ed
Cooley
recruit rooting against.
Yeah, last 2 weeks. Like, I'd be like, Ed Cooley's had 2 weeks to recruit, at least get some momentum, get his and now McCaslin will be behind the 8 ball. So give McCaslin some rope this first year. I think he'll maybe have not a great roster on paper, but he can do more with less, better than anyone in the country. It will be the lows will be still pretty solid, and the highs could be high.
Yeah, if you're a Providence fan that's very bitter, they'd say Cooley has had a month and a half head start on Georgetown. They recruiting a little before he left Providence.
I've seen some Texas Tech fans like lukewarm on this. Don't be lukewarm. This is a amazing hire. North Texas in KenPom's history has had 4 top 100 finishes. It's all McCaslin, and it's the last 4 years.
Yeah, he turned North Texas into like a bubbly team every single year. It's ludicrous how good he's been there.
Top 35 right now, KenPom.
Yeah, on Field of 68 After Dark, I was not actually on the show on, Friday night. They're talking about a coach that missed the tournament that they think will make the tournament the next year, and I said McCaslin. I thought at Texas Tech, I think he'll get it done. Big 12 is brutal. It's a gauntlet, but I just trust him. I think he's a fantastic coach. We're also going to talk Cal. I think I saw someone in the chat, maybe Pat, mentioned that they're interested in that. Sorry if it wasn't Pat. I apologize. But Cal is picking up Mark Madsen from Utah Valley. Matt, speaking of coach that lost in the NIT and now has got a new job. How did Stanford drop the ball here? They had an alum wanting to come to the Bay Area to take over for a very disappointing coach who has not gotten it done in his tenure there. And instead he's going to their arch rival. That is an all-time bag drop or ball drop by the Stanford administration.
Yeah, Matt's has been great. I mean, multiple years of just shattering preseason expectations by the numbers. I like how he coaches. He's got a blend of an identity with his physicality and size, and he kind of has that big man whisperer that will attract legitimate bigs via the portal and on the recruiting trail. But also, I think he kind of opened up the offense a little bit this year. They played a little faster. He's got a good thing going. I like what he's doing. I hope we see the dancing bear dancing his way to a Pac-12 title in the not so near future. Although, let's be honest, will Cal ever be a Pac-12 title contender? Probably not.
Hey, didn't Mike Montgomery win with like Jerome Randall?
Alonzo Martin?
Guys?
Yeah. Well, Zoe Martin with the talent he got, I don't think Matson's a talent magnet to Zoe's level, but who knows? Yeah, the Pac-12 is always kind of wide open, I guess. So
he's a great talent identifier. Like Aziz Bandago, a nobody in the MAC, and now he's an absolute monster for Utah Valley. Like that's the kind of eye you need to have. It's going to be tough. I mean, that is a very, very strict academic school, so you can't just recruit anybody, but I trust him. I think he's a very, very good coach. And the fact that he exceeded that even above Mark Pope's level at Utah Valley, that's mega
crazy.
impressive.
I agree.
Yep. As soon as Stanford fires Haas, Matson's gone. He's going to Stanford.
Yeah, he's just walking across the
so?
day.
Yes.
I'm headed over to Palo Alto from Berkeley. We've also got to mention Amir Abdul-Rahim. This was from this morning, headed to South Florida, Kennesaw State darling. A lot of people really warmed up to how great of a job he's done there after making the tournament. We had talked about it preseason. The fact that he had elevated that program to even competence in the ASUN was like the first time for them. And now their tournament team. It was rumored that potentially Ryan Odom would go to South Florida, but he was waiting to see if VCU would open. It did. Very quick pivot from South Florida to Abdul-Rahim. And Kai, I think it's a win for them.
I think it's a great hire. Yep. Here's what I would suggest.
Has he been getting better talent at Kennesaw than South Florida's been getting at South Florida? My
suggestion would be, hey, Amir, take your starting 5 and bring them to South Florida and start your team with that. I think they would do okay.
Yeah, pretty much. I'm about to confirm, but I'm pretty sure Kennesaw was better than South Florida this year. Yeah, by 20 spots in KenPom. So there you go. All right, next one. New Mexico State hired Jason Hooten from Sam Houston State. Technically a cross-conference rival, but I forgot, and we'll remind you guys, New Mexico State is headed to Conference USA next year, starting this summer.
Yeah.
So he will not be coaching against Sam Houston State. Matt, he'd been there for 13 years. Did you realize that?
A while. And he had been he was a master at not making loud noise ever, but always being the top of the totem pole. And then he finally kind of broke through the last few seasons. This year being 26-8, they were playing like a top 50 team. They won at Oklahoma, won at Utah. He can coach, knows the West, kind of that Great West region. Very on this hire.
In Sam Houston's football team is Conference USA. Are they still in the WAC basketball?
I believe they stay in the WAC, but I'm not 100% sure.
Okay.
I don't know who all has moved to Conference USA.
Yeah.
From WAC to Conference USA. Kai, I'll let you check on that while I mention a couple other quick hires here.
Yep.
In the Patriot League, Dave Paulson is back, former Bucknell coach, former George Mason coach, to tie full circle. He is at Holy Cross after they fired Brett Nelson. Yeah, it seems like a home run there. And Lafayette gave their job to interim coach Mike McGarvey. He took over in sometime, I think, late February as Mike Jordan was getting investigated. Mr. Jordan did not sound real thrilled by the fact that he has been ushered out the door, but McGarvey did a pretty solid job without Jordan, got them to the Patriot title game rather impressively for a team that was somewhat devoid of talent, if you ask me.
Jim,
Kai, do you have an update?
Indeed, Sam Houston is moving to Conference USA with New Mexico State, as well as
the full list.
FIU, who was already there. These are the 9 teams. FIU, Jacksonville State, Liberty. Is this football too? This is football.
Well, it might correspond.
Wikipedia says yes to Conference USA. Sorry, this should be an easier answer. Yeah, we'll figure it out in the offseason, guys.
Conference alignment's really tough. Yeah, it's not important right now. That's fine. And again, we will be doing coaching hires grading in the offseason after the Final Four, after we've recovered a little bit. Quick recruiting news, just to, I guess, rub more salt in Providence's wounds. Sorry. Drew Fielder, 2023 power forward, 4-star, has switched his commitment from Providence to Georgetown. And the same thing happened in the class of 2024. High 4-star Kayvon Mulready was a Providence commit, now headed to Georgetown. Sorry, Friars. Mr. Cooley is bringing his talent with him. And then Juke Harris, a top 50 4-star shooting guard, headed to Wake Forest. Mr. Forbes. We know he can build through the portal, but it's nice to see him getting some impressive freshmen as well there. All right, Kai, that mostly wraps it up. We do want to mention that the McDonald's All-American game happened last night. I tuned in for a little bit. Really ugly court. I'm going to just come right out and say it. I think some people like it. I thought it was hideous. I don't understand what they were aiming for with that. Bronny James was the story, yada, yada, yada. I guess because he's uncommitted, I think that's even more exciting. I think Fran Fraschilla called him the most intriguing recruit in this class, and that's just like not true. I guess he's exciting because he's LeBron's son, but there's a reason he's not like a top 15 prospect. I don't know. DJ Wagner won MVP. Cool.
Yeah, some people were mocking him top 10 in the draft, Bronny James, and I don't know. His shot looked good. He was 5 for 8 from 3. That's all he scored. I didn't watch the game. I do not care about Bronny James. I do not give a flying
I don't
F
yeah.
about Bronny
I don't care
James.
more about him than any recruit right now, and none of them are in college, and we're college hoops guys. So
yes,
it's mostly a shrug for me.
Anyways, it happened.
The one thing I thought was cool was DJ Wagner is the first 3rd generation McDonald's All-American. His dad and his grandpa both played in that game.
That's insane.
Really, really cool. Yep.
Nice.
All right, let's get into We've Saw That. Let's move to our next segment here. We've Saw That. This basically encapsulates anything we saw from the past week. And we saw a lot in the NCAA tournament, but we're also going to give a quick mention to the NIT, mostly to, unfortunately, kind of chuckle at my old Wisconsin Badgers. Them and North Texas combined for 13 points in the final 11 minutes. I believe Wisconsin had like one of those. Because Wisconsin was scoreless in the final 9:08. This game was at 100 points with 9 minutes left. Fran Fraschilla said they were going to blow by the over. Like he outright said it on the broadcast. Like the total is 115. They're going to obliterate it. And then there were, like Kai said, 13 points in the final 11 minutes. Holy cow. Pretty ugly. UNT heads to the final, Matt, against UAB, 2 COSA teams. Charlotte already won the CBI. FAU's winning the NCAA title, aren't they? Let's just admit it. Trifecta's coming.
It's a perfect conference, Jim. It's a perfect conference. We'll see if next year's revamped group can continue the perfection. But yeah, I think it's already a foregone conclusion. We have FAU cutting down the nets in Houston, and then probably North Texas is my pick to cut it down in Vegas at the Orleans Arena.
Yeah. It's the 4th time that UAB and North Texas have played. Just an absolutely ludicrous run for them this year. Sweet 16 thoughts, Kai? What jumped out at you most? You can talk Gonzaga, you can talk the 1 seeds, the great OT game between K-State. What was the most iconic Sweet 16 game for you?
I thought the Kansas State, Michigan State thriller in OT was the best game, maybe one of the best in the tournament. And of course, I was at a steak dinner for my birthday. My birthday was on the 23rd. I didn't tell you.
Happy birthday!
It was.
Happy birthday.
I was at a steak dinner with my wife, but I did see highlights. I think it was the only overtime game of the tournament. I need to be corrected on that one. But yeah, fantastic game. Marquise Noel had like 19 assists.
Yeah, NCAA tournament record. He really grabbed the tournament by storm, or took the tournament by storm with his performance in New York City. I mean, his Twitter name is like Mr. New York, and he had 20 points and 19 assists, and then I think 30 and 11 against FAU. Matt, he was phenomenal. Are you sad that he is not here? Or are you just completely pro Owls in the final?
Yeah, no, it's funny. Like K-State was kind of a thorn in my side for the first couple months of the year. It took me a while to just concede that they are a really fun and actually good team. And then by the time my heart had fallen in love with Mr. Noel, Mr. New York City, they're playing FAU. So like, push comes to shove, I'm repping my Owls 10 times out of 10. So then I find myself kind of back in the November, I hate K-State. K-State's the worst, yada, yada, yada. So I had my bias shades on. But just in pure showmanship, no question, Noel's been the story of the tournament. His game is loud, Kai, and he is a fun one to watch. We'll miss him.
Yeah. Jim, of course, the other thing was, hey, both 1 seeds fell in the Sweet 16 that were remaining. No 1 seeds in the Elite 8, first time ever that's happened. So weird tournament overall.
Yeah, Houston got embarrassed. Like the team that I've been beating the drum for since preseason had a great future on them. Man, that was hard to watch. They just got shellacked in the second half. I think people were waiting for them to do what they did to Auburn in the second half, and they just didn't. Miami's been the second half king of this tournament. Matt, I want to point and laugh at Alabama real quick, because this team has a top 5 defense. We talked about it a lot. They cut it to 2 against San Diego State with 45 seconds left. You have a top 5 defense in the country playing a bad offense, and they chose to foul and extend the game. What the heck is going on with that decision? I need you to explain that to me.
No, I can't explain it. Maybe Oates read how the game was playing. He kind of feel the walls caving in, but it felt like a panic move.
They were coming back. They had the momentum.
It was slow and subtle, but they still had a hole to dig out of. I'm with you. I think you keep playing it straight up. It seemed like that's how Oates reacted to it. Like, I need to make something happen here. And it was sort of a knee-jerk reaction. We all kind of dub them the autopilot, set and forget it, cruise control to national title, and then sure enough, they get tripped up. Kind of the theme of this tournament, right? Houston, same thing. I think we kind of dubbed them almost bulletproof, but the overarching theme, Kai, was no one is bulletproof, and everyone's prone to, tripping on their own feet or the feet of their opponent if the right matchup presents itself. And sure enough, Houston and Bama did just that.
Yeah, or if you shoot 3 for 27 from 3 and your best player, Brandon Miller, Jim, has the worst shooting performance of all time in a tournament setting for how many shots he took.
The Matt Norlander tweet was first person sub 20% on 40 or more attempts. Like absolutely embarrassing.
Jeez.
And yeah, Matt, they had cut a 9-point lead with 2 minutes left to 2 with 45 seconds. Like that's a quick shaving of the lead. I don't understand giving San Diego State team that struggles to score in the half court 3 points at the free throw line. It was double bonus. If it was single bonus, I might get it, but it was double bonus. That was a poor decision, backfired on them, and they didn't score again in the final 45 seconds. So that's a problem.
Man.
It seems like everyone's picking FAU here because unlike San Diego State, who I think people think were sort of gifted 2 victories by just terrible opponent performances, it seems like FAU more or less deserved it. I'm trying to kind of read between the lines of why so many people like FAU in this game. Well, as we'll preview here in a little bit, but I think kind of a key differentiator for how those two teams arrived at the Final Four.
Yeah, I'll just quick mention the awesome game I got to see in person from basically in the rafters, the Gonzaga UCLA game. It seemed like it was going to be a runaway for UCLA, and then suddenly Gonzaga ran away with it the other direction, was up 10 points with like under 2 minutes left. Then UCLA shockingly took the lead. It was like, wait a second, this game isn't over. UCLA hasn't scored a field goal in like 9 minutes. Mm-hmm. And then suddenly they had retaken the lead. Kai, we get the Strother shot. Good shot, bad shot?
It's not a good shot. It was a terrible shot. I can't believe. Yeah, they said, after the game, they're like, it's the Chris Jenkins play. Yeah, but there's like 10 seconds left and you shot it from like 35 feet. What are you doing here, Strother? He made it. Hey, not a bad shot if it goes in, right? That's what the high school coaches used to say. But yeah, if he missed that, we would have been crucifying Gonzaga for that last possession.
Yeah, it was poor. I think the general drop of the play was to get him downhill.
Yeah,
but the defender of Strother went under the screen because it was so far away. And look, he hit a 30-footer. You got to tip your cap at that stage. Your cap.
I have a hot take there. Yeah. Was it a good shot? No, I'm not gonna say it was a good shot. I bet Strother hits that at like a 40% clip in practice. That's a sneaky, not easy shot. That's easier than it looks. Like the distance gets you like the straight on. Yeah, you're running right into it. Like at the J, we used to shoot that all the time. I feel like we would make that, I don't know, 60%. So no, I mean, we didn't, but it's an easier shot than I think it looks. So I completely buy that they practice it all the time and that it was probably a pretty high percentage given the situation, not optimal. But I kind of like Few just feeling the
there's also like 5 seconds left though, right? Like they left way too much time.
Yeah.
UCLA could have easily tied it up.
Yeah. I think it went in with like 9 seconds or something. Yeah. If he bricks that and Drew Timme, who had 36, doesn't touch the ball on the last possession of his college career, I think people go absolutely ballistic and possibly rightfully so.
And Drew Timme probably was ballistic too.
Yeah. No, he said he had complete trust in him. Timme was awesome.
I know. I want to let
his career ended. In his press conference was really like heartfelt, introspective. I was rather impressed. I thought he'd be a little more bitter, but I guess when you get blown out by 30, you're not as bitter as losing close. You kind of had time to get over it and process it as the game goes on. All right,
Timme needs a podcast.
Let's get him on this.
Needs a podcast. Yeah, or that too.
There you go. The Elite Eight. UConn smashed Gonzaga by 28. Huskies have now won by 24, 15, 23, and 28 in this tournament. 3 of those games against KenPom top 25, 2 of them against KenPom top 15. It's ridiculous. Tip of the cap to Mr. Timme. Definitely one of the best college players of my lifetime. Bummed to see him go, but great 4 years. I'm sure he wishes he could have climbed the mountain with Gonzaga, but he got him close a few times. And just the more times Gonzaga's in the mix, they'll eventually get one. Just ask, I don't know, Kansas, I guess they were in the mix for years and years after the first one, finally got a second one. FAU survives a war with K-State. I mentioned that. Kai, let's quickly adjudicate Jerome Tang going into the away or the opposing locker room after the game. You and I share.
Can we present this unbiasedly? Yeah, you guys are overly unbiasedly out on this.
Well,
yeah,
how am I biased?
I'm not against. Well, yeah, this was sorry, just give the premise here. I disagree with you both on this one. Per usual.
Jerome Tang, who I love and think is a fantastic coach,
as do I,
went into the FAU locker room, told them they were the toughest sons of guns he had played all season. I don't think any coach should do this ever. It is a loser move. Get out of the locker room. Let them celebrate. Yeah. Why are you there? You can talk to him after. Get out of the locker room.
It's a loser move. Players don't want it. Who cares? Especially if it's also kind of condescending as well. It's saying, oh, yep, we're clearly. It's like Coach K used to do this too. I think other coaches have done it. Oh, we're the superior team, clearly. Hey, but you guys are great. Go win the next one. Also, Kamala Harris shouldn't be talking to Howard after the game either. We don't need speeches if you're not part of the coaching staff in the locker room post game.
Yeah, I think I remember Quanzo Martin went into like the Emporia State locker room after they gave Mizzou a heck of a fight and was like really condescending, like, man, you guys are really good.
Who's
like,
asking for this?
It's just, it feels like I'm Jerome Tang. I'm going to be on camera. And I don't think he is like this. I think he's kind of pure of heart. But for most coaches, it's like, oh, this is going to look really good for recruiting. I'm going to be like I can walk into any mom's living room and be like, look how nice of a gentleman I am. Just don't do it.
Be like, we know we're tough, man. Yeah, we beat you. So get out of my locker room.
Get out of our locker room. We're celebrating. Go away. Yeah. All right, Matt. Do you want to push back? I'll give you the mic.
I thought he asked to come in, and B, it was like 20 or so minutes after like the course celebration. So it wasn't like he was barging in right when Dusty May walks in and they doused him in water. I think there's a little bit of a lull period. So the timing to me wasn't a big deal. I assume he got permission to go in there. I understand the condescending point. Like I understand well, yeah, fair. But also keep in mind, a big part of this whole storyline, and May's talked about this, a little different because Mike Davis was May's former boss. But like May talked about how like the players hearing Mike Davis come in and talk to them after FAU beat Detroit by like 25 on those MTEs was like a key mental light bulb that was like, wow, we could be really good this year. And like to hear Davis have those like very telling, I don't know. I think it comes from the right person in the right moment. It's good. And the reactions of the FAU players seem to like really be like into it. So I don't know. People made a big stink about this on Twitter. I was like, well, I sort of see the condescending point. I do. Like Coach K reeks of condescend. Like Coach K, don't come in my locker room after you beat us and like tell us how good we are. Like if Mercer, whatever. Like I'm with you on that. But I think Tang is like kind of more of a respected. Players respect him more. I don't know. I liked it actually. So
Tang is also Tang's very good with the media. After the Kansas game, when they stormed the court, he got up and did a speech on the court and told his crowd to stop saying FKU. Come on, guys. We're better than that. We're a good program and clean. He's done tons of media with the campus. He's done home field media. He is playing up a persona for sure when he's doing this as well. Yes.
Savvy. Yeah. I just don't think it's ever necessary. You can't come up with one scenario where it's like, this was super value add. Like I'm out on it from everyone. It's not a thing. It's I don't get it at all.
All right. My take, it's case by case. I like that case. Case by case. I like that case.
Nope. I'm painting with the broadest of brushes here, Matthew. let me do black and white, no gray area for me on this one. San Diego State beats Creighton, first Final Four in program history. It's also the first Elite Eight for the Mountain West, first Final Four for the Mountain West, dragging that conference's reputation to respectability because every other program in the league craps the bed when they make the NCAA tournament. We had a controversial call at the end. Still a little surprising though, because San Diego State collapsed against this team last year, and it felt like maybe they were going to give it up in the final minute again here. Yeah, I didn't realize Mountain West never made Elite Eight. That's it's a good stat there. It hasn't been a conference for that long, I suppose, but still. Yeah, like 98 or something like that. Yeah. The call, man. Trammell, runner in the lane, and they called a foul on Nemhard, I believe, who definitely had his left hand on Trammell's body and probably gave him a little push, probably a foul. I'm of the opinion you don't make that call based on how you called the rest of the game up to that point. It was a physical game. There's a lot of calls that could have been called fouls that weren't. I think you respect the way you've called it the whole game. Be consistent. Be consistently bad or good. You can't be both over a course of 40 minutes, in my opinion. Should have gone to overtime, deserved to go in overtime. But congratulations to San Diego State. They deserved to win. They did.
You're giving the ref, like, I guess I would agree with that, but that's based on the assumption that the ref would be good enough to call a game consistently and have a precedent. Like, these refs are just, objectively, like, they're not great, which is kind of the way it is in college basketball, has been for many years. So you make the call. It's a foul. Call it. Yeah, maybe you didn't call it throughout the rest of the game, but I don't know. It's saying a ref's going to consistently like you called that in the first half and not here. It's like no calls ever the exact same. A and B. It's implying the refs are even good enough to even uphold some sort of consistency. They're not. It was a foul. Make the call. They actually made the right call. It was a foul. I'm fine with it.
Look,
get your hands off him, Nemhard. Get your hands. What are you doing?
Yeah.
What? Why are you riding him?
After he had already beaten him off the bounce, like you can't
get your hands off him. Get your hands off him.
These are still the best refs that college basketball has at their disposal. Like they get a lot of crap for sure. They know when they're calling a game close and they're calling a game not close. They're letting the boys play or they're not. It seemed like they were letting the boys play for 40 minutes.
It's not a binary. This game is a physical game. Let everything go. This game, unless it's the Duke Tennessee game, which that was absolutely just a bloodbath. But everything else is like kind of in the gray area, and so every bang bang. I don't know. I wasn't upset over it.
It's just he's in the air. That's like as somebody who has really injured their leg landing off balance from a jump. I'm very sensitive to that kind of contact, knocking him off balance in the air. I think it has to be a foul. It's unfortunate. I would have liked to see overtime because it was going to be a slugfest.
Yeah.
Protect the shooters. Protect the shooters.
You have to
always.
That's where I land.
It's like the essence of our game. The guy's up to shoot. You can go up, contest, but don't get in his landing space and don't touch him. That's just kind of how I've always operated.
If you're a Creighton fan, though, be mad at Kalkbrenner for going 8 for 16 from like the rim. Be mad at that. Be mad at going 2 for 17 from 3.
2 for 17 from 3. That's what you got to be mad about.
Like, come on. Just play. Kalkbrenner missed so many bunnies. Anyways.
Yep.
Last one to mention, Miami comes back from down big to beat Texas. They were down 13 with under 13 to play, had a 3.9% chance to win per KenPom. That is after the opening round when they were down 8 with 5 minutes left against Drake, had an 8% chance to win, closed on a 16-1 run. Kai, I am getting Arkansas Musselman vibes with these comebacks, the way that Miami has been. But man, that offense can really score. And I think you just have to know they're never out of it because of how ridiculous that offense is.
Yeah, it's true. And I think we went through this exercise with Virginia when they made their title run in 2019, how unlikely it was for them to win all those games. They had such a small percentage at one point. If you put 8% times 4% here, my handy dandy calculator, it's a 0.3% chance of hitting both of those. So Miami has rode some considerable luck to this point, as all teams have, but you also got to credit their coaching. You got to credit their offense, their guards. I'm shocked Texas blew this game, though. I thought it was over. I pretty much chalked it up. Oh, cool. Texas Final Four. Great. But nope.
Hi, how much do you put on Rodney Terry for blowing it?
I mean, you something. They didn't have Disu. Their guy who was playing the best on their team was not playing. Part of the luck, I guess, a little bit
at the rim. Like Miami was like 66% inside the arc with no Disu out there to protect it. So that is a problem. But they still built a 13-point lead without him. So the fact that they blew it is a little bit concerning.
Yeah, some blame has to be put at Terry's feet as well. But people don't see that. They see he took Texas to an Elite Eight, even though he inherited a 12-1 team. That was a top 5 team in the country when he inherited it. Give him a 5-year contract.
Yeah, they were 4th in KenPom when he took over. They finished 5th. All right.
Whatever.
Okay, fair enough. And how many points over the last, 8 minutes of the game? They scored 9 points against a defense that's not in the top 100. Like Texas, you got to wear that a little bit, unfortunately. All right, guys, let's talk previews. We are, as we said, headed down to Houston this week. We've got 2 great ones on Saturday. Yes, I said great ones. I know people might not be jazzed about the teams that are playing, but I think FAU San Diego State's going to be close. Miami's offense is good enough to give UConn a fight, potentially. Let's talk the first one. We'll go chronological here. FAU San Diego State. For those interested in the wagering aspect of it, San Diego State a slight favorite, -1.5, -2. 131.5 is your total, expected to be rather low scoring. Matt, I'm gonna go on that angle to you here. FAU has won games super low scoring, and they have won games that are fast. I go back to middle of the year. They beat North Texas in a 58 possession game. The next game, they beat UAB in a 73 possession game, and then beat Charlotte 59. In this tournament, they have won games 60 possessions, 73, 58, 73. They can win in any way. So even playing SDSU's muck ball, FAU is going to be comfortable, right?
Yeah, Memphis 60 possession, Tennessee 58 possession, Barely Dickinson 73, Kansas State 73. You just said that? I thought you said the middle. I'm sorry.
I did both.
I wanted to do the I'll reaffirm that Conference USA tournament, Western Kentucky 74, Middle Tennessee 62, then UAB 72. Yeah, they're like the matrix of basketball teams, right? They can beat and adapt to any sort of style or nuance that you see. We've seen it time and time again. As an FAU fan, I'm just rooting for one of these lesser, they're all unsung heroes to a degree, but like the really unsung heroes, the guys that aren't named, what John L. Davis and Nelly Davis and Elijah Martin at this point. I think Nick Boyd, Brian Greenlee, Jalen Gaffney is a guy I think is due for a big game. He's been a tremendous passer, kind of distributor for the tournament so far. Brandon Weatherspoon, just drilling threes in transition, defending, kind of has like a little bit of like a mid-post turnaround game he can score. I think you're going to get a big-time performance from a guy that you haven't heard his name called yet. Michael Forrest was going to be my pick, but he's already kind of had his coming out party after he was struggling down the stretch. There's so many good storylines with this FAU team. I could go on and on about them. So, Kai, any real X and O shrewd takes here?
Well, I think the fact that you just named like 10 guys is why FAU rocks.
Like, pause real quick. I pose this to you. I think you, to my buddy Nick, our buddy Nick.
Yes.
Would, as Mizzou, do you agree that all 9 players who play would start from Mizzou or should start from Mizzou next year?
I'm not sure I agree with that.
I don't think I agree with that.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think I would start. I'd start all 9.
I mean, if Mizzou gets like Jamarian Sharp or Caden Shedrick, I'm not starting Rosado over those guys or
center. Golden.
That's crazy. Fine. That's fair. Okay.
That's fine. Well, they're not superstars. Like, that's what's cool about FAU is they're just a really good team. Like, they are the team's team here. They play so well together. 35-3. You don't go 35-3 without a superstar and not be just an incredible cohesive team. I've repeated all my points on other shows, but this is a cool tweet from Eli Becker, heat check, friend of ours. I didn't realize this for San Diego State. Brian Dutcher in his era at San Diego State, 116-9, 93% win percentage when they score above 1 points per possession. 34-37 otherwise. It's kind of crazy. So basically, offense has held San Diego State back. They have an elite defense. They always have. Eliza or Eliza in the chat said, isn't their defense part of the reason why the teams they played struggled against them so much the first 4 games? Absolutely. I think our point, though, was those teams shooting 17% instead of San Diego State's 27% 3-point percentage average on defense over the course of the year is a little bit lucky. San Diego State's gotten fortunate, in addition to being a good defensive team, Jim.
Yeah, 17 is ludicrous. Like, if you had a guy literally on their backs, I think like Alabama shoots better than 3 for 27 from 3. I know that affects you a little bit, the wear down physicality of the game over the course of 40 minutes, but 17, it's just like, that's a ludicrously low number, not something that's sustainable over time. You would expect it at some stage to tick back up. Maybe it's against FAU, Matt, who you said consistently hasn't even shot the ball that well this tournament. They kind of did against K-State. I believe they were high 30s from 3 against the Wildcats, but they were sub 30 in the first 3 games and still managed to pull out 3 victories. So this team can win in so many different ways. I don't want to take too much away from San Diego State. I think they can beat up FAU, especially at the 4 spot. I love Nelly Davis. I love Elijah Martin, but they are not Keyshawn Johnson. They are not Agueka Rope. They could have some real problems in the paint in that case. But you need Matt Bradley to actually play well, and he hasn't really so far for San Diego State. And FAU isn't that reliant on one guy that way. So I think FAU is my pick there to move on, Matthias.
I think the key thing is, so Memphis, Tennessee, K-State, FAU posted a 40% or higher offensive rebounding rate, like just dominated the. People look at the the rebounding battle. I hate when people talk about overall rebounds to rebounds. You need to like offensive rebounding is really what kind of dictates that. You know, who did better getting your own misses, and to do it against Memphis, Tennessee, K-State, pretty damn impressive. I don't think they're going to get 40% of the misses against San Diego State. I think if they're a more sound defense rebounding team. I think Memphis, Tennessee more rely on their athleticism. They're not actually like sound defense rebounding teams. That's one concern I have for the Owls. If they're not supplementing like they did against Memphis and Tennessee, if shots aren't falling, it's going to be an uphill battle. Because I do think the wear The brute physicality and the depth that the Techs have is what's underrated. And that's something that Memphis, Tennessee didn't really have.
Kai, we agree we get a better title if FAU advances, just especially aesthetically.
Aesthetically, you could argue that they deserve to be in the title game with their record. It's the best in the country. And it's a fantastic story. And I don't think anybody really, no offense, cares that much about San Diego State. I think you get a lot more interest with FAU, and yes, a better product for people to watch.
Yeah. That if you're trying to get fans that are a little more casual into it, FAU sells the storyline a lot better than San Diego State at this point. Who they will be playing is the question, though. That's between Miami and UConn. UConn, the juggernaut that has rolled to get here. Miami, kind of the feel-good story led by everybody's favorite grandpa. Jim Larrañaga has really leaned into that, leaned into making sure his team is having fun. I'm sure you guys saw the timeout late in the Miami game against Texas where he was like, where would you rather be? You guys, are you having fun yet? And that just seemed to loosen up the huddle. They go out and they go on a big run to end the game against Texas. Mr. Larrañaga has been a star of this tournament. But Kai, right now we're looking at UConn -5.5. That is your betting spread, up around 149 for the total. Expected a lot more points in this game, 18 points higher than the other semifinal. What do you see playing out here? What are the most important factors to you?
Yeah, and if you're a betting man, UConn's future right now in the market is -120, -115.
Even more than that. I've seen -150 in places.
Yeah. So for them not to win the title would be an upset for them not to win the next two games. They are the number one team in the country per KenPom. The other three teams are 14, 17, and 22. So this is a lopsided Final Four in UConn's favor. Do they step up to the plate here and handle the pressure well? I tend to think they have the type of guys that can. I think Tristan Newton is a bulldog, we'll say. He is a gamer, a baller, Matthew. I think he can handle that pressure. I think for the most part they can as well.
They call him dudes. Yeah.
Dan Hurley, just keep your mouth shut, man, on the sidelines. Don't get a technical. Jim Larrañaga is the best coach in this game. He might be the best coach in the Final Four. I need to think about that.
I think he is. I thought about this. I would give him my slight nod. All four really good coaches, but he's my favorite coach.
He's the only one that's been to a Final Four of this foursome. He took, and that was George Mason. So the guy can coach. Man, Matt, I'm going with UConn because they've just been rolling teams over. We mentioned the 2018 Villanova, the 2021 Baylor Gonzaga teams. They've covered and won games easily throughout the tournament. Over 20 points per game they've won by. So many weapons. If they get Norchad O'Meara in foul trouble, it's lights out for Miami. Tough if, but if they do, it's done. Yeah.
We made this comparison on Sirius, Kai, or I did. I'll give myself credit here. I think it's a very good comparison. The Villanova that year to this current UConn team, they played Michigan in that Final Four, did Nova. Team that was good, but really hit a surge late, similar to Miami, right? Good all year, but they're really surging now. I think you put two red hot rocket ships together. The rocket ship with more horsepower in it, I think, prevails. Just a stupid anecdote, but that's kind of how I look at this. I like that precedent. Nova just ran over Michigan. The wheels kind of fell off. I think the Miami defense gets exposed in this game. I've talked about how I think their pressure could bother UConn. We've seen UConn have trouble with press before, but I don't think it's going to happen without the depth. The Canes are just a few bodies short to really exploit that for a full 40 minutes. And I think Hurley is actually an underrated coach. We talked about how Larrañaga is underrated. I think Hurley is as well. I think they've made multiple adjustments down the stretch. Well, I would say Larrañaga is the best coach in this tournament. I don't think he's leaps and bounds better than Hurley, just given how Hurley's, what he's done with this team, but not just overall, but responding to multiple adversity points throughout the season, specifically that kind of February swoon. So I like UConn first half. I think Miami comes back, makes it close second half, but I think UConn wins semi-convincingly.
I've been really impressed with Hurley, both in his demeanor, especially off the court. He did, pardon my take, he was really good in the post-game presser after they were going to the Final Four, just kind of calm, but matter of fact, and praising of his guys, putting a lot on the players, like doing how do I screw it up when I'm sitting next to three NBA players with Hawkins, Jackson, and Sonogo sitting next to him? Like, all right, yeah, I buy that. And then somebody asked about the swoon in January, and he was like, I screwed it up. I was getting on the refs too much. I didn't figure out how to use Jackson when they started really sagging off him and forcing him to be a shooter. It took us a while to figure that out. That doesn't work anymore. He's figured out a lot of answers to the questions that people have posed to this UConn team. You got to mention UConn 15-0 against non-conference competition now, winning by an average of 25 a game. They're 15-0 against the spread against teams that are non-Big East foes. But Matt, while you're doing comparisons, I'm not sure if either of you saw my tweet saying this, so I'm gonna throw it at you and see.
I see all your tweets. I have notifications for both your tweets, by the way.
Wow, that's dumb. My tweets are not that.
You guys are okay on the Twitter. I like both your tweets. Go ahead, Jimmy. You were saying.
I'm comparing Auburn this year's Miami to 2019 Auburn, a 5 seed that was life and death with a 12 seed in the opening round, barely got by New Mexico State.
Yep.
And then they played a blue blood program in the second round. That was Kansas for them. This year was Indiana for Miami. Kind of smashed them, ended up running away with it. Then blew out the 1 seed, a team regarded as one of the best in the country. That was North Carolina for Auburn. And then this year, Houston for Miami. And then in the Final Four, or the Elite Eight, they survived a really game effort from a team that was pretty hot. Kentucky that year. This year, it's Texas for Miami. Of course, Auburn had the heartbreaking corner 3 foul to lose to Virginia in 2019.
It was a foul.
Agreed. You got to let the guy land. Very similar to the Creighton foul. Like, you got to call it no matter what part of the game you're at. But Matt, how do you feel about the comparison? Because Auburn also very much led by an incendiary backcourt akin to the Wong-Pack dynamic duo. You could make the Chuma Okeke is Jordan Miller connective piece. There's a lot of tissue there that works between those two. I didn't really give a take on the game, but I'm curious what you think about that comparison.
I like the comparison. Does that precedent have any foreshadowing power for what happens in this matchup, Jim? What was the final? Well, I guess how did that game play out? Now I'm blanking out. Auburn versus
63-62 was a slow
Auburn should have won.
Slow. They should have won. That's right. Okay. I do think this game's closer than people think. I don't know. I've gone back and forth on it, actually.
Yeah, I took some Miami, but what was I going to say? Does it feel, if UConn doesn't win this title, because I have this opinion, does it feel cheap if FAU, San Diego State, or Miami wins? Does it feel anticlimactic? Does it feel undeserving for one of the other 3 teams to win the title? Because they are outside the top 10, all 3 of them, and probably are if you made ratings.
Here's why. Outside. I think not every year is there a surefire team that really deserves to win it. I think this is one of those years where like Houston or Alabama, like I don't feel like those teams emphatically proved start to finish regular season that they were like the best team and deserved to win it.
I don't think like a top 5 team should win it. I'm not sure.
I'd like a good team to win.
How many years have we not had a truly top 5 team in the country win the title?
It's like the UConn team in 2014.
It's really and UConn 2011. It's basically those 2 teams. It's so that the irony here is that UConn has a dominant
2011 team was a 3 seed.
Like 2011 team was top 10, but 2014.
They were, I guess they were. They were overseeded though.
The Shabazz year, you're right. They were 15th in Ken Pom at the end of the year.
Yeah.
30th or 25th coming in. Yeah.
The only reason I'm not going to call it cheap is because FAU won their league and the tournament.
I'd be cool with FAU.
San Diego State won their league and the tournament. I respect like they beat who was in front of them most of the year, and now they've done it in the tournament. Interestingly enough, the only team that's not a champion in this group is UConn. They didn't win the regular season or the tournament title, whereas at least Miami got a share of the ACC regular season. But UConn won the November-December championship. They were the best non-conference team with a bullet. Like I don't think it was really even comparable. Maybe you could say Purdue was up there with them too, but I think UConn was the best team of that era. So I don't know. Yeah. Tough to say. I won't call it cheap, Kai, but I do think UConn will eventually win.
One more point. The Larinaga and Dutcher factor for the 2 teams who, if they won, I would say it's a little cheapish. I think it's I'll put my head to the pillow at night and feel, I'll be at ease knowing that 2 guys who I think deserve it more as like a lifetime achievement award. One of those guys get it. I'll be okay with that. But I'll be much happier if FAU gets it or UConn gets it for sure.
Yeah, you could do the Dutcher didn't have the 2020 run that maybe he was going to get in that tournament. That team was bound to be like a 1 or 2 seed. Larinaga had the really injury marred years. I've heard people say like, oh, this program tanked. They were terrible for 2 or 3 years. Yeah. And they're not mentioning the context of like, they were wrecked by injuries. One year they were starting a walk-on in the final game of the year because they had like 5 bodies left. So look what happens when Larinaga is healthy. Elite 8, Final 4, back to back. Not
Larinaga's George Mason resume is a lot better than people think. I think people are like, oh, he had the one fluky Final 4-year run. I think Mason fans would tell you how good that program was, like year in, year out. Actually, he had like another top 25 team his last year there before he left to Miami.
Right. I think a lot of people would say he left right after the Final Four, right? It's like, no, he coached there for 5 more years.
And made 2 more tournaments and made second round his last year. That's when he had Luke Hancock and Ryan Pearson. Little throwback to major names for those of you who are into that sort of thing.
Maybe it's that most people don't follow college basketball to our extent and even to the chat mob's extent. So the casual fan is, wow, Miami won the national title. Wow, Miami was the best team last year. And as a psychology sort of thing, that just bugs the crap out of me. And I can argue till I'm blue in the face about how Miami's not a top 10 team or 15 team. And they'll just say, well, they won the title.
Well, I've got one for you, Kai.
And that bugs me.
I've got one
shot quality. Kai, shot quality defense real quick here, Jim. 42nd.
Yeah, don't care about shot quality.
Sorry.
Here's the one I want to throw at you, Kai, because I was just listening to Eye on College Basketball with Gary Parrish and Matt Norlander, and Parrish was like, if I'm going to do a top 25 and 1 the night of the title and reveal it, Florida Atlantic, if they win the title with the best record in the country and can bring everyone back, do I have to rank them number 1? I was like, no. And Norlander was the voice of reason. He was like, you do not have to rank them number 1.
I would be okay if they bring everybody back. If someone says they're a top 25 team next year, heck, I
think they are a top 25 team. Yeah, they are a top 25 team.
But they're not number 1. 25. They're not top 5, and they're probably not even top 10 next year in the poll.
Jim, I love the Loyola comparison you made. Like, if Loyola was top 50 fringe-ish, top 70, and then they got red hot and then raced in the top 25. Like, FAU's been...
They were top 25 coming into the tournament.
I think they've proven they're this good. And you could argue the league's been undervalued all year to a degree that we're seeing that postseason. So another feather in the cap for our Owls. Not that they need many feathers.
Yeah, I've got some work to do trying to figure out what my preseason stuff is. I think somebody asked in the chat about preseason futures. I've got to figure that out. But guys, real quick, before we close this out, your title picks. We're here. We got to make the choice before we go down to Houston. Matt, who wins over who in the final game?
FAU over UConn by 5.
Wow. Owl boy.
I'll be in Boca. I'll be in Boca when it happens. Well, sorry, the day after it happens.
Yeah, I cannot believe you're going to fly back if FAU makes the championship game. That is horrible if that happens.
And I'll switch my flight. I think I'll switch.
Yeah, I mean, you have to see Dusty cut down the net. I'm going to go with my heart. UConn over FAU in the finals, and we get to watch Dan Hurley celebrate, which will be both infuriating and hilarious, most likely.
Yeah, I'm going to say UConn over FAU as well, sticking with Kai here. I guess I finally can't say Houston over Bama. I was saying that for months and months and months. Can't do that anymore. That is not an option. I'm going to go UConn over FAU. I just think they're playing the best. And, one last point. In the presser after Gonzaga lost to UConn, Mark Few basically said, like, if you have 48 hours to prepare for UConn, good luck. You're screwed because you have to figure out your post-up coverages against Sonogo. But then when he's not on the floor, it's Klingon. You got to figure out how you're dealing with that, the lob threat. You also have to figure out all the off-ball sets where Hawkins is coming off screens. How do you deal with a team that inverts your attack and has Jackson as the primary distributor, but also plays in the dunker spot? Their defensive athleticism, like, it's just so hard to turn around quickly against this team. I'm pretty confident that if Miami does not get UConn with 5 days of prep for Larinaga, no one's getting UConn. I just don't think they're going to lose that title game. I believe that's it. Fellas, any final thoughts to add before we get out of here and head down to the Lone Star State?
300 episodes down, man. 300 to go, or 1,000 to go. However many years we did this. We're 50 years old and still doing this podcast. I don't know.
Is that a win or a loss?
Yeah, no.
That's a win because that means we probably didn't go back to the corporate world, which would be a huge win.
That's true.
And maybe
that is a fantastic point.
Yes.
Yeah.
Really all right. Well, thank you everybody for tuning in. A super active chat mob today. Love to see it. Thank you all for watching live. Thank you everyone for listening. Even if you're not live, we love you just the same. If you're down in Houston, feel free to reach out to us. We will make every effort to say hi to as many people as we can. We'll be all around 3-on-3 and the media days at the tournament and bouncing around downtown Houston while we can. So definitely give us a shout, DM 3-Man Weave or one of us individually. Happy to try to meet up with as many people as we can. So thank you for tuning in. Enjoy the Final Four. Enjoy the title game. We'll see you in Houston.